All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Los Angeles City Board of Public Works meeting for Friday, April 16th, 2021. I hope everyone is rip-roaring, ready to go. Good morning, Vice President Garcia, Commissioner Villegas, Commissioner Calosa, President Pro Tem Davis, esteemed colleagues and friends, the City Attorney, Ted Jordan, and Dr. Campos. How's everybody doing?
Doing well. Thank you for asking.
Dr.
Very good, very good.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Davis. All right. Good morning, Dr. Campos. Have we got quorum?
I think you just established the quorum right now.
I did.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, establishing roll calling quorum. We have President Good, Vice President Garcia, President Pro Tem Davis, and Commissioners Villegas and Calosa. We are also joined by our General Counsel, Mr. Ted Jordan, who's on the line, and myself dialing in here remotely from my City Hall office. So, President Good, you do have a quorum. At this time, you do have one caller on the line for general public comments. We also have comments for items number 1 and 4. In addition to that, we did receive 7 comments that were received through our Google form, online public comment form, and these items are related to, they indicate item 2, but they're related to item 2 that was heard by your board on Wednesday. I will enter those into the record dealing with or relative to the CDP appeal.
Got it. Thank you.
And again, we do have callers on the line for items 1 and 4 in public comments.
Okay. But we do have we have one caller, Dr. Williams, for general public, right?
That is correct, Mr. President.
So,
Mr. President, there's also been a request to continue item number 3 to Wednesday, April 21st, 2021. Also a request to continue item number 7 to Friday, May 7th, 2021, and a withdrawal of item number 10 if your board would like to consider those.
You beat me to the punch. Let's, unless there are any major objections from my fellow commissioners, let's go ahead and, yeah, we'll continue 3 and 7 to dates that we identified, Dr. Campos, and you said withdrawal on item number 10?
That is correct.
Okay, so we will do so. Let's do that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Maxwell.
Okay. Sorry? Hey, Orlando.
How you doing?
Good. How you doing? Wearing your cowboy colors. I like it. All right. So let's jump in, colleagues. First off, we'll take the minutes from Wednesday, March 31, 2021. Do I have a second to my motion to approve?
Moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Any concerns, Garcia, Calosa, or Davis?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, hearing no concerns, the minutes from Wednesday, March 31, 2021 are approved and adopted forthwith. Dr. Campos, let's have our general public comment.
Thank you, Mr. President. We do have one caller on the line, Mr. Williams. Dr. Williams, if you can please press *6 at this time. The Board of Public Works will consider your public comments. You'll have 2 minutes to speak on this.
Hello, this is Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council Director and member of several other organizations. I would like to comment regarding the Measure R funding. I first started regarding 710 in 1992. We're still waiting. We're quite concerned regarding what the overall city participation is in the 710 Measure R funding and how it relates to all of the projects being funded by such accounts. So we're quite concerned regarding Eastern improvements, the Soto Street widening, and anything related there too. There's also a reference in documents, TSM, TDM for the 710, as to Huntington Drive improvements, but we haven't heard anything about that. So we're quite concerned regarding the Huntington Drive and actions already taken by LA City regarding what we call the Fremont Bypass, that is Monterey Road from South Pasadena to the LA County Medical Center and Keck. So we need to see an overall concept as to what LA City roads will be doing during the next, say, 5 years. So we've already been, I say, stabbed in the back by the Mission, Soto, Huntington Drive interchange being funded by SR 710 funding. And we're quite concerned regarding Eagle Rock Boulevard upgrade being funded by 710. So we would like to see an overall plan for 90032 zip code as to what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Okay. Let's move to item number 1 on the agenda. Item number 1 is in CD 14. This is task order solicitation number 080, Parsons Transportation Group, Inc. and HNTB Corporation pre-qualified on-call consultants list, State Route 710, Valley Boulevard Multimodal Transportation Improvements Project. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the city engineer to issue the TOS to Parsons Transportation Group, Inc. from the pre-qualified on-call design and support services consultants list to provide engineering support services for phase 1 of the project approval and environmental document phase for the State Route 710 Valley Boulevard Multimodal Transportation Improvements Project, as stated in TOS number 080, with a budget authority of $752,100, which includes contingency, and 2, authorize the city engineer to issue the TOS to HNTB Corporation from the PQOC pre-qualified on-call design and support services consultants list to provide engineering support services for phase 1 of the PA and ED phase for the State Route 710 Valley Boulevard Multimodal Transportation Improvements Project, as stated in TOS number 080, with a budgetary authority of $747,900, which also includes contingency. This is work order E700-417A C-134642 and C-134473. I think Ms. Lau is with us today on this item. Good morning, Ms. Lau.
Good morning, President Good.
And real quick, I'm sorry, Dr. Campos, you said we have a caller on this item, right?
You read my mind. I was trying to jump in at the right time for you. But yes,
Sorry to cut you off, Ms. Lau. Let's hear our comment on the item and then we'll go.
we do have one caller on the line for item number 1, caller ending in 682, caller ending in 682. If you can please press *6 at this time to unmute your microphone.
I'm ready.
You're good to go, Dr. Williams. 2 minutes.
Okay. Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council, been on this one several times, but some basic elements. Number 1, the dimensions provided in the documents would indicate that it's only going to start from Soto and go to the west side of the 710 intersection. I would highly recommend that you continue the project from Mission Road on the west to the east side of the intersection for the 710, which would be the entire area, because all of the Valley Boulevard needs improvements for pedestrian passage from the north side to the south side of the road. It's terrible, and we would highly recommend that. Full disclosure, I worked for Parsons for over 20 years. So I'm not prejudiced either way, but do the right thing. There's also a matter that right now the city of Alhambra has a large project which needs road improvements on Alhambra Avenue and Mission Road. And like I say, the Alhambra Avenue section within the city of Los Angeles should be included in this Valley Boulevard improvements because directly connects with that and is an alternative route for a future BRT, what I call Line 77. Line 76, which is for this particular project, is underutilized. There's not enough people on it to justify BRT status because there just ain't enough people there, and the frequency is not at 15 minutes. So I'd highly recommend expanding this particular project to include Alhambra Avenue and Valley Boulevard together, with an extended Valley Boulevard from Mission to the 710 intersection. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. All right, Ms. Lau, why don't you
Yes, good morning, Shirley Lau with the Bureau of Engineering Bridge Improvement Division. I'll go ahead and start off with a bit of background on this project. So the State Route 710 North extension was a proposal to connect the southern terminus of the 210 freeway in Pasadena with the 710 freeway terminus in Alhambra. And back in 2008, voters had approved Measure R, which allowed allocation of $780 million in funding, supplemented by almost $300 million in previously secured federal and state funds to bridge the gap between the two freeways. In 2015, Metro initiated an environmental impact report to determine the best alternative to close this transportation gap. In 2017, Metro voted to support the Transportation Demand Management and Transportation System Management alternative, and that allocated $730 million to the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments and almost $300 million to the City of LA and County of LA to implement mobility improvement projects in areas that are impacted by the freeway extension not being built. In September 2019, Metro approved $100 million for phase 2 of mobility improvements for the City of LA, in which this Valley Boulevard multimodal transportation improvements corridor is part of that, and $34 million is programmed for this project. In December of 2019, City Council authorized the respective city departments to carry out the approved projects. So this project improvements lies along a 2.4 mile section of Valley Boulevard east of downtown, and it will stretch from the terminus of 710 freeway to Soto Street. It will provide mobility improvements, pedestrian access enhancements, transit infrastructure improvements, and potentially a dedicated bus rapid transit route for the corridor. It will also address the long-time safety concerns at existing railroad crossings by removing pedestrian and vehicular conflicts with the Union Pacific Railroad track. The project also aims to increase transit service, connectivity, and improve access to the many employment centers, educational and healthcare facilities, and recreation centers along the corridor. So this task order is for the first part of the project approval and environmental document phase, in which we want to clearly define the purpose and need of the project. We want to evaluate existing conditions and constraints, conduct traffic analysis assessment, and identify the full range of viable alternatives for the corridor. This task also includes significant efforts in stakeholder coordination and public involvement, which will be starting soon. BOE's solicitation was sent out to all 30 firms on the Bridge Civil Engineering pre-qualified on-call list. The solicitation specified that more than one firm may be selected to complete this task. 12 firms responded, and all 12 firms were interviewed by a selection panel that consisted of experienced project managers from the Bureau of Engineering, Streets LA, LA DOT, and also LA County Department of Public Works. Panelists reviewed the proposals, qualifications, and experience of the consultant firms and determined that Parsons Transportation Group and HNTB, they demonstrated the most comprehensive understanding of the project. They had the most innovative approaches in addressing stakeholder and public outreach efforts. They addressed project challenges such as the railroad crossings and possessed the experience to bring innovative concepts to blend roadway, transit, and context-sensitive improvements to the corridor. Due to funding milestones and to effectuate a more timely delivery of this task, BOE divided the scope between the two firms. So BOE recommends acceptance of Parsons Transportation Group's negotiated proposal of $740,522 with a contingency of $6,578 for a budget authority of $752,100. And for HNTB, their negotiated proposal of $741,319 with a contingency of $6,581 for a budget authority of $747,900. The total budget authority for this task is $1.5 million. This project is 100% funded by the Federal Regional Surface Transportation Program and therefore follows the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Participation requirements. The city set an anticipated DBE participation level of 8%. Parsons Transportation Group is pledging 22.8% and HNTB is pledging 10.9% for this task. Front funds will be from the Transportation Grant Fund, and that will be reimbursed at 100%, and there is no impact to the general fund. Listening to the public comment, I just wanted to note that the portion that extends from Soto Street into downtown, that portion is currently programmed with the LA County Department of Public Works, and we are looking at the entire corridor holistically, and we will be working with LA County Public Works on coordination efforts in the future. Lastly, BOE requests a minor amendment on the task order number to the recommendations set forth in this report, and I will read that into the record. Number one, authorize the city engineer to issue the task for solicitation to Parsons Transportation Group, contract number C134642 from the pre-qualified on-call design and support services consultants list to provide engineering support services for phase 1 of the project approval and environmental document phase for the State Route 710 Valley Boulevard Multimodal Transportation Improvements project as stated in task order solicitation number 080A with a budget authority of $752,100, which includes contingency. And number two, authorize the city engineer to include the task for solicitation to HNTB Corporation, contract number 134473, from the pre-qualified on-call design and support services consultants list to provide engineering support services for phase 1 of the project approval and environmental document phase for the State Route 710 Valley Boulevard Multimodal Transportation Improvements project, as stated in task order solicitation number 080B, with a budget authority of $747,900, which includes contingency. BOE requests the board approve the recommendations as amended, and that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lau. I'm going to open it up for the commissioners. Commissioner Villegas, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate your report, Shirley. It was really thorough. Just a couple of clarifying questions. Can you expand? You just mentioned a little bit about the Soto Street piece. If you can just clarify a little bit of that.
Right. So our project, the one presented to you today, the section goes from the terminus of the 710 freeway in Alhambra, and it terminates at Soto Street. And so I think the idea is to eventually improve the entire corridor all the way into downtown. And LA County Department of Public Works actually has a project programmed that starts from Soto Street and goes into Union Station. So we are collaborating with them to work on the project in its entirety along the entire corridor.
You're muted, Teresa.
Thank you. All right, I appreciate that. So there's just a consistent feel, right, so it's seamless, just going through various jurisdictions. I appreciate that clarification. Can you then let me know I see that you have a bunch of consultants, listed on your on the report, just to do outreach. They'll be doing outreach to this community in particular. That's the El Sereno 90032 neighborhood and probably 90031.
Yes, we will be starting outreach efforts in the next month. And I believe it will include more than those zip codes. I think we're reaching to a broader area just because a lot of constituents, a lot of people go through that corridor. They use that corridor to go into downtown and into San Gabriel Valley. So, and we also are going to be coordinating with the city of Alhambra. A lot of coordination efforts on this project. It's a very large area.
Is the 710, like where it ends, is that going to be closed? Or I'm probably going off topic here, but I'm just curious.
We do not know yet. A portion of that is in the city of Alhambra. So they also received funds from Metro, and I believe they're working on some, I guess, alternatives as to what will happen in that area.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, just a lot of outreach is going to be needed. And so it's a big regional area. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. President Pro Tem Davis. Okay, well, waiting for Commissioner Davis.
Wait, I apologize for that.
That's okay.
It's not a problem. Ms. Lau, I wanted to ask about the time period in the project. What's the anticipated time frame of the project?
So we are looking to complete this task in 12 months, and the bulk of the work will be community outreach and coordination efforts. And while we are doing that, we have also a lot of engineering work to do, which consists of looking at existing conditions and constraints, and also starting discussions with the Union Pacific Railroad on how to better, I guess, make the safety improvements in that region.
Sure. And in terms of the funding of the project, where are the sources of funding coming from?
Yes, it's 100% federal funds. It's coming from what's called the Regional Surface Transportation Program. And those are in general for street improvement projects, mobility projects. So, but luckily we have it as 100% reimbursable back to the city.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good. Good morning to everyone. Shirley, good report. I don't have any questions. My colleagues have asked the questions I wanted to ask. I was particularly more interested in the outreach for the community, but I think between Commissioner Villegas and Davis, we captured that. So thank you for your report. Again, always very thorough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Commissioner Closa.
Thank you, President Good. Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Lau. I don't have any questions for Ms. Lau. She briefed me on this item. I'm just excited to see it moving forward in this next phase as the country is having a much larger conversation around infrastructure. This is going to be a major infrastructure project for the region. And so it's a big deal moving forward, and I look forward to seeing its progress. And I know it'll be in good hands with Ms. Lau.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, this is a big project, that's for sure. I don't really have any questions. Shirley, I will say, I believe that, and Dr. Campos can confirm, I do think because these are consultant contracts versus without a cost ceiling, that this will be subject to cost containment. Is that correct, Dr. Campos?
That is correct, Mr. President. Since these contracts, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shirley, these contracts do not have a contract ceiling, and we do not currently have a blanket exemption approval from the mayor for cost containments. These would be subject to the mayor's approval for under the cost containment.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So with that, Teresa?
I'm sorry, just I thought there was a ceiling on these. I thought that there's Parsons and HNTB have like budget allocations already in this board letter. I didn't understand what Dr. Campos said about no ceiling.
I think we should distinguish between the contracts themselves and the task orders that we're awarding. under these contracts. So the contract itself, as I recall, does not have a cost ceiling. But you're not awarding contracts today. These are tasks. So I would let staff talk about what budget limitations there are with regard to each specific task order.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Shirley, anything you would?
I believe this does need to go to cost containment also because these are new contracts for a new project. And so
Yeah.
that would be my recommendation.
And we can work to expedite, but yeah, I think that's right. Dr. Campos, anything you'd add on that?
No, I believe Ms. Lau covered it, and I believe that Mr. Jordan also covered it. And we can ask for an expedited review since this is grant funded. Perhaps we can get this approved quickly through the mayor's office and the CAO's review.
I think we should be able to. That's my gut. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Just for clarification, I'm sorry to belabor the point. We're awarding task orders. We're not awarding contracts. So
right.
I realize the effect essentially is the same, but it's not a new contract. It's a new task order under an existing contract.
Yes. Okay. So, colleagues, we're voting on 2 task order solicitation. I will motion to approve as amended, subject to the mayor's cost containment process, and also with Ms. Lau's amendment to recommendation 1 and 2.
Second.
Second, thank you, Commissioner Carrozza. Any concerns or questions, Garcia, Villegas, or Davis?
No questions for me.
Okay. Hearing no concerns or questions, the item as amended is adopted forthwith. Go forth, Ms. Lau. Can't wait to see how this progresses over the years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day, okay? And a good weekend.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. All right, colleagues. By the way, I would be remiss if at some point I didn't comment on Mr. Tangeri's background, which I take particular delight in. But with that, we'll move to item number 2. Item number 2 is also CD 14. Change order numbers 127 and 128. Skanska, Stacy, and Whitbeck joint venture task order package 5. New viaduct for the 6th Street viaduct replacement project. Recommending the board 1, authorize the city engineer to issue change order number 127 to Skanska, Stacy, and Whitbeck, a joint venture, for a not to exceed amount of $350,000 for the task order package number 5, new viaduct for the 6th Street viaduct replacement project, to provide roadway worker in charge flagging structures for the Southern California Regional Rail Authority, and 2, authorize the city engineer to issue change order number 128 for a not to exceed amount of $737,100 for the project to provide flag persons for the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority track allocations. I believe Ms. Allen, the 6th Street Viaduct Maven, is with us this morning. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, President Good. I'm Julie Allen with the Bureau of Engineering. Today I will be requesting authority for change orders number 127 and 128. I did want to point out that we are not requesting any increase in contingency or budget associated with these change orders. They've been anticipated and included in the overall project budget. And I also would like to mention that I will be providing a status update on the project later in this board meeting, so I won't include an update on the status as part of this report. So for a little bit of background, the board awarded a task order to SSW in January of 2017 to construct the 6th Street Viaduct replacement project with an overall budget of $205,668,480 to construct the project. And the overall project is a 3,500 foot long viaduct, about 100 feet wide, including pedestrian ramps.
Anybody ever heard of this project? I'm sorry.
people are probably getting more familiar with it lately. It's a lot more visible to people that come through downtown. So for change order 127 specifically, this is the result of a change in the safety policy for SCARA, or otherwise known as Metrolink, in September of 2019, which basically required an additional flagging person to support the project on each side of the LA River, because they do have tracks on both sides of the river for our project. And as mentioned during the board hearing in February of this year, February 2nd, there was a significant increase in costs associated with the additional flagging support. So the city and Metrolink worked together to identify some mechanisms to reduce the amount of flagging that would be needed while still providing all the safety that's required to cross these tracks. So what was developed was the placement of utility structures, which you can see in the report on page 2. There's a structure on each side of the LA River adjacent to the tracks, and it has power supply, heating, air conditioning, and it basically provides a field office for the flagger that'll be at the track level and gives them visibility to both the tracks and the work performed above on the structure as well as down in the LA River. And this, due to the urgency of reducing the flagging costs of having the additional flagging support person, we issued this emergency change order number 127 on January 22nd of 2021. And that allowed the contractor to begin procurement of these structures and beginning to set up the utilities to support them. So additional costs are expected to be incurred for this change order for the remainder of the project, including the utility and maintenance costs through the end of the project, along with necessary adjustments to accommodate construction phasing and SCARA needs, as well as removal of the structures at the end of the project. Therefore, we're anticipating that the total cost would not exceed $350,000 in total for both structures. And by incorporating these structures and paying this $350,000, we will save about $1.8 million in additional flagging costs that would have otherwise have been required to be paid to Metrolink to support the project. So the next element of this board report is the request for change order number 128, also related to flagging support for the project. And this is based on the fact that in December of last year, Metro, which is one of the rail agencies that we work with for the project, let us know that they did not have flag persons available to support our project. Through the construction and maintenance agreement, we pay for these flagging support persons to the agency themselves. But due to the fact that Metro indicated they didn't have anyone available due to COVID and other projects they have in their system, they asked if the city had anyone that we could utilize to provide these services in lieu of Metro performing them. So we worked with the contractor and they identified that they would be able to provide flagging persons for this role. So we issued an emergency change order under the City Engineers Authority on January 4th of 2021 for an amount of $130,000. And that allowed the contractor to identify and train their own craft workers and begin to support activities at Span 4 that were ongoing from January through March. So at this time, we're requesting board authority to continue to fund the contractor to provide these flag persons on behalf of Metro for the remainder of the project, just in case Metro is unable to provide the flag persons, for a total amount of $737,100. And essentially this will either be paid to our contractor to provide the flagging, or if Metro is available, we will cease paying the contractor and resume paying Metro to provide the flagging services. So there is no overall increase in cost for flagging. It's just a matter of which agency we are paying to provide these services. So a table showing the summary of change orders is included on page 3 of the board report, including these change orders of just over $1 million. Our total change order percentage is just over 36% for package 5, which is the viaduct construction package. As I mentioned, there is no additional funding required or contingency to implement these two change orders. So there is no change to the overall funding table, which is included in page 4 of the report. So with that, I think that concludes everything I wanted to present today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Appreciate it and thorough as always, and looking forward to the overall update on the viaduct later. President Pro Tem Davis, any questions on this?
Yeah, Ms. Allen, I think you've had some brief discussion in the past in terms of the mechanics of flagging. However, for the purpose of this proposal, has there been any plans that would specify which of the two sources of flagging that we would like to use, or is it customary to be flexible in terms of plans as far as a decision as to which of the two flagging sources we will use?
Commissioner Davis, this is the first time we have had the agency not have staff available to perform their own flagging. It's customary that they provide their own or hire a consultant to perform it on their behalf. However, we have no preference one way or the other. We were fortunate that the contractor was able to identify and provide people to support the project. So in general, the construction and maintenance agreement identifies that the agency, the railroad agency would provide it. So if they have people available, we would go back to that methodology. So the city doesn't have a preference, but generally the path forward would be using the agency's railroad flagger support in lieu of our own.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. And thank you, Julie, for your presentation. It was really, you would always explain things so well, make it easy for us to understand such complicated issues. Just wanted to ask, it seems like these flagging structures are temporary?
That's correct.
They're going to be taken down after, okay. Were there any permits required, like for Army Corps or flood control or anything like that?
Since both of the structures were outside of the flow of the LA River, there was no permit required with the regulatory agencies, and they were actually within the railroad's rights of way, so we didn't need any additional right of entry or rights from any other agencies. So
okay.
No additional permitting was required.
I understand. Thank you. That was all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good. Nice to see you, Julie. Julie, is this an additional amount than the last time we approved this? Because I know this came to board, I think you said January, so I know it wasn't so long ago. So is this an addition to that task, or is this just to complete the entire piece of this flagging need we have, flagging a service we have to have?
Yeah, it's a good question. No, there is no additional cost associated with these change orders for the flagging structures. It was identified when we presented at the board in February that this would be at a cost that the project would have to incorporate to place these structures, basically as an offset to the additional flagging costs that we would have had to pay if they had the additional flaggers. And the cost for the Metro flaggers, basically it's just replacing, either the cost will be paid to Metro or they'll be paid to the contractor. It's not an increase.
Got it. Okay, that clears it up. Thank you so much. That's all. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Vice
Thank
President. Commissioner Cuozzo.
Thank you, President Good. I thought Ms. Allen did a great job, as always, on her report. I don't have any questions for this. I know that you mentioned this in the last report that this would be coming our way. So you've done a really good job at keeping the board abreast of what's coming for this project. So none of it is a surprise. And that we know that these are fixed costs, unfortunately, for this project, and is much needed to ensure the safety of our workers and, of course, people on the trains who may be riding it, to make sure that safety component is always top priority. So no questions for me. I look forward to seeing and hearing about your report at the end of our board meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Closen. Yeah, the safety, I mean, this is obviously paramount and non-negotiable in the grand scheme. One question, and this just may be me being Flintstone. So, Julie, I understand that there's no additional cost. This is basically part of the overall budget. Where does this, how does this interact with the substantial contract amendment that we did around the settlements? Was this part of that?
No, these are actually unrelated to the overall amendment. The contingency that is being used for these costs is within the construction contingency that was awarded with the project.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right. Do I have a motion to approve these change orders?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Pelosa. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, enthusiasm. President. I got seconds from President Pro Tem Davis and Vice President Garcia. Leaving Commissioner Villegas. Any objections or concerns? No concerns. All right. Hearing no objections, these change orders are adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you. And they're not subject to the cost payment. Thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a little bit, okay?
Sounds great.
Thanks. All right, folks. Let's go to item 3 where we have continued. So item 3 is continued. Let's go now to item number 4. Excuse me. Item number 4 is in Council District 3. This is a tree removal at 6904 North Eaton Avenue on Bassett Street. Recommending the board, 1, finding the California Public Resources Code, Section 21166, and the State Environmental Quality Act guidelines, Section 15162, on the basis of substantial evidence contained in the whole record that since the city's prior certification of mitigation negative declaration report, case number ENV-2014-775-MND, there have been no changes to the project, changes with respect to the circumstances under which the project is being undertaken, or new information of substantial importance concerning the project, which cause new significant environmental effects or a substantial increase in the severity of previously identified significant effects, and therefore no subsequent MND, supplemental MND, or other analysis is required for the project. 2, specify that the Bureau of Street Services Urban Forestry Division, located at 1149 South Broadway, is custodian of the documents or other material that constitute the record of proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. 3, review and approve the request for a fee tree removal permit to remove 6 trees, which include 1 queen palm, 1 modesto ash, and 4 carrotwood trees. Tree replacements are required, and 4, concur with the Bureau of Street Services determination that the site cannot feasibly accommodate all of the required replacement trees and pursuant to LAMC 62.177C, authorize the tree replacement guarantee fund fee to satisfy the board's tree planting requirement. I see, I know, Dr. Campos, we have, I think, at least one caller on the item, right?
That is correct, Mr. President. Also, after the board started its meeting, we did receive one comment through Google form on item number 4. It came in before the item was called, and it's from Hassan Steve Nazimi on item 4. His comment, or her comment, is approve the tree removal permit, and this person is for the item. We also have one member from the general public on the line. Ms. D'Antonio, if you can please press *6 at this time to unmute your microphone. You'll be given 2 minutes to speak on item number 4. Caller ending in 631. There you go.
Good morning, Ms. D'Antonio.
Yeah, good morning, President Good and the commissioners. I'm Joanne D'Antonio from CFAC and the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. I'm speaking as an individual. I don't see the plans for the project in the transmittal, but I'm asking the Board of Public Works Commissioners to investigate the reason for street widening here. because, as you know, urban forestry has some discretion in these tree removals. Look at the other side of Bassett Street on Google Maps, and you'll see that there's no trees and plenty of open space, and the building is very far from the street. Why not widen there? It is a logical mitigation. I recommend that you continue this decision in order to look into this more holistic approach that keeps these shade trees that mitigate heat island effect in the hot San Fernando Valley and widen on the other side of the street. I think we need to start taking a more environmentally responsible approach, and here you have an opportunity. These mostly shade-producing carrotwood trees are valuable, and one is in front of actually the apartment building next door. You can see how full the trees are in Transmittal 9 in the first picture. Realize that replacement trees will not be planted until the building is completed, and then they have to grow. So no shade here for at least 10 years, and some of the replacement trees are being planted off-site. Please continue this decision and take some time to look into a more responsible decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. D'Antonio. All right, with us today, as always, thank you. Hector Benuelos. Good morning, Mr. Benuelos.
Good morning, President Good, Commissioners. Hector Benuelos with the Streets LA Urban Forestry Division. We have before us is a request for a fee permit to remove 6 trees at 6904 Eaton Avenue. This location is on the southeast corner of West Bassett Street in Council District 3. The applicant here is proposing construction of the demolition of a single-family residence at a 11,900 or 293 square foot lot, and proposing to construct a new 19-unit residential apartment development. This is, in order to construct the development, the applicant or the developer is required to widen Bassett Street from an 18 feet half roadway to a 22 feet half roadway. And the required street widening will severely impact and create the need to remove 6 street trees on Bassett Street. And it is true what Ms. Joe Antonio stated, that 1 tree is located on the adjacent property there, and all the other remaining 5 trees are on this site here at Eaton Avenue. There is also 1 evergreen pear tree in fair condition in front of the site on Eaton. That tree will be minimally impacted and will be retained in place. Now the trees there proposed for removal is 1 Modesto ash tree that have structural defects. I mean, this tree has been severely topped for unknown reasons. It has codominant limbs, included bark, and most likely will be problematic in the future, and therefore not really a desirable tree. There is also queen palm almost right on the corner of this site here, and it will be impacted by the required street widening. There's also going to be installing also a access ramp there on the corner. And in addition to the carrotwood trees, they're medium-sized trees, and they're yes, they provide shade, but the carrotwood is the division doesn't really approve the planting of these trees because they do produce a high amount of volatile organic compounds. And so we're not opposed to the removal of these trees, and if approved, the developer and applicant will be required to replant and replace these trees. However, there's only room for 5 trees at this project site. We're asking that the board approve the request for the 6 trees and allow the Streets LA to implement the tree planting guarantee fee for the 7 remaining trees to meet the board's 2-to-1 tree replacement. The division did notify the Community Forestry Advisory Committee, the Council District 3, and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. The division did not receive any comments from the council office, so it is unknown if they are either opposed or in support of the project and tree removals. So we ask that the board approve the request for the tree removals and allow the Streets LA to implement the tree planting guarantee fee. That concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions the board and or public may have.
Thank you, Mr. Manuelos. President Pro Tem Davis, any questions or thoughts?
Oh, yeah, just making sure, Mr. Manuelos, the relationship with the council office on this matter, have they taken a position on it, or?
No, I have not received a response back from the council office yet. So I'm assuming, because they have not received a response either in support or opposed to the project. So I assume they were neutral.
Yeah, because they would get back with you if they were really, we would think. Any opposition from the community on this stuff? Or do we always have opposition on this stuff?
Yes, we did receive one inquiry that I know of. However, it was not indicated to me that they were opposed or in support of the project.
Okay, so no indication there. So obviously we always want to make sure that to the degree we can save tree canopy, that is certainly something that we do. And we do recognize that that is not always the issue with every project that we do. There's always some concern, but not always a situation where there is a problem. Now, it appears to me, and I'm not so sure, but it appears to me that you don't really have any major problems. You've not heard from the council office, and you've not heard from any opposition from the community. So for me, I don't see any major problems heretofore on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. And for the record, we did have we had Mr. D'Antonio in general in public comment actually opposed to this.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry about that.
Vice President Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Hector and Ms. D'Antonio, for today's overall comment. Hector, why are we going to allow the removal of a tree on the adjacent property?
It's going to be severely impacted by the required street widening.
I see. And just to touch on Ms. D'Antonio's comment, why aren't we widening the other side of the street? Because I'm on Google right now and I can see the other side has no trees or very slim trees and just has a lot of just like weeds coming out of it. Why aren't we going? And I know you're not planning, Hector, but do you have that that reasoning why we're not going the other way?
No, that's a discipline well outside of my expertise and the division's expertise. And that I know the Bureau of Engineering, when the developments become go through the entitlements, all of these requirements are vetted through the respective departments and divisions. And so I would refer to the applicant, who I believe is online, or the Bureau of Engineering for the response to that inquiry.
Sure. Is the applicant on the line or BOE that's part of this project?
Commissioner Garcia, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. I do not believe the applicant is on the line. However, we do have a caller on the line ending in 547. That could be the applicant. Caller ending in 547, caller ending in 547. If you are the applicant to item number 4 today for the tree removal on Eaton Avenue, if you can please press *6 at this time to unmute your microphone. Again, only if you are the applicant on item number 4. Caller ending in 547.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Are you the applicant?
This is Steve Nazemi. I'm the civil engineer on this project. The reason we're not widening the Eaton Avenue is because it's wide enough, and Bureau of Engineering did not ask for it anywhere. Only the street along Bassett is the one that is not wide enough. It's a collector street, and the street has to be 22 feet half roadway, and that's why we need to push the curb back 4 feet. And as a result of moving the curb back 4 feet, all of those trees will be on conflict with the new curb and gutters. That's why we are asking for the removal of the trees and fixing the streets.
Okay, understood. Yeah, it's a shame. These trees look really nice and healthy. At least some of them do. I know, Hector, you said one was not. That was in pretty bad shape, but the rest do. To the applicant, there is no possible way to save any of these trees at all?
No, unfortunately, because the curb would be pushed back 4 feet, and these trees are usually about 3-4 feet from the existing curb, would be a conflict. So it will fall into where the new curb and gutter is going to be. And
yeah.
So we'll remove the tree, and we're going to be planting new trees at the side. And then if there's any additional trees that urban forestry is asking, we'll donate that to the city, and then they plant it somewhere else.
Thank you. Hector, what size of trees will be planted here once once this is all over?
If approved, the applicant will be required to plant a minimum of 5 24-inch box-sized African thorn pines. And just to kind of correct Mr. Nazemi's comments previously, the developer will not be donating any trees. They will be required to pay the tree planting guarantee fee in order to meet the 2-to-1.
Okay. I'll leave my question. I'll stop with my questions now. But okay. I want to see what my colleagues have to say. But I'm really disappointed in the fact that there's some really good-looking trees here that are going to be taken out, and I hope that we don't cause a lot of disruption to the adjacent property, because they seem to have a good a good shade coming to them, and it was just really bad that we're gonna uproot them from that. So that's all for now from me.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Commissioner Colosa.
Thank you, President Good. Thank you for your report, Mr. Banuelos. And just so I understand this correctly, and apologies if my questions rather simple. I just want to make sure I'm less familiar with the planning regulations are for this. But so since the applicant is increasing the density in this part of the city, they are required to expand the street here and do the street widening. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And for the actual structure itself, I know you're demolishing an existing building, and you're building a 3-story structure. Just for background, what kind of housing units are those?
The residential units.
Right. I mean, are there any affordable housing units, or are they normal housing?
Yes, I think 2 or 3 of the units will be for low income, and the rest of them will be market rate.
And that's 2 or 3 units out of how many units? 19, right?
Yeah, I think it's 19 units.
Sorry, you have a lot of background noise. Maybe if you could please mute your phone for the applicant. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm trying to ask here. Because I know that there's a widening in here that's involved because we're increasing the density. Can you just briefly go over one more time, Mr. Banuelos, the health of the trees that we're removing? I know it's in the board report, but if you could just go over it one more time.
The health of there's a one queen palm on the corner. Right? It's pretty close to the corner. That's in fair condition. That measures about 12 inches in diameter by about 20 feet in height. Then you have one Modesto ash tree that is about 24-inch diameter, but it's a large tree, but it's only about 20 feet high. So it's been severely topped for unknown reasons. And it has co-dominant limbs and included bark. exactly the best structured tree. So I would rate that tree as poor condition. And then we have the 4 remaining carrotwood trees who are in fair condition. They measure about 12 inches by 20 feet in height. So they're not that tall. They normally don't grow very tall. And they do produce a high level of volatile organic compounds as well. It's one of the trees that really isn't, that the division is reluctant to replant because of the fact that they do produce a lot of volatile organic compounds.
Okay,
But yeah, they are in fair condition though.
got it. And then, I know Mr. Tangier is not here for this item. Oh, you are here for this item, Mr. Tangier? No, you're not. Okay, I'm not gonna.
No, but I can answer any questions about the permitting side of it.
Okay.
If you have any.
That would be great. And I'm just curious, do you know if any other alternatives were explored outside of going to the Bassett side of the widening? Or was this really the only option?
So, when there's entitlements involved, that goes through city planning and that goes through the public hearings, and then there's conditions that are set from city planning. And normally whenever there's a development, the development or improvements or dedications have to be adjacent to the property of the developer, which would be on the north side of Bassett, which requires the widening. And that's why the south side of Bassett, there's no proposed widening, because that property owner wasn't involved with this development.
Yes, and obviously the developer, if there's a dedication, is dedicating their property, not someone else's property.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Tangier and Mr. Jordan, for the clarification. I don't think I have any more questions at this time. I appreciate it.
You're muted, but I'll go.
Thank you, Commissioner Closer. Go ahead, Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you, and I appreciate Mr. Benuelos's presentation. Thank you for that, and my colleagues for all their questions. Just looking at the site, I think it's prime just for a river, parkway improvement. Just across the street is the LA River. I would work with CD3. Just let them know that they should be planting trees on that side and make it lush and beautiful. That's what I see, as a benefit. Just living adjacent to that, there could possibly some bike trails or anything like that, but I would make that across the street just more lush and make it even like a bike stop. That said, I realize that some of these decisions are difficult for us, and that's why we were appointed to do our job. Not to negate that we don't have a responsibility also to our environment, but we do have a population increase, and we need housing as well. So these are the issues that we just need to balance and that are not easy. I have just one question. This is for Mr. Benuelos. Where will the replacement trees be located?
On site, the plan is room to plant 5 trees on site, on the public right of way.
Okay, so removing 6 trees, and they'll be planting 5 on site, and the remaining?
There will be 7 trees that will be implemented as part of the tree planting guarantee fee. So to make up, to meet the 2-to-1 tree replacement requirement.
Okay, so it's 2-to-1, and 5 will be planted on site, and there's remaining of 7. Do you know where those will be?
They'll be planted at locations that were consistent on the previously approved tree planting guarantee plan.
And do those include that, like, right away across the street?
I don't believe it does.
How is there a possibility for us to recommend that they plant them there?
Recall, Commissioner Villegas, that there's a in lieu tree planting plan that council approves, and that I believe Mr. Benuelos has already been approved at this point.
I know, I get that. Thank you for that clarification. I get that. Just trying to think out of the box as much as possible. And sometimes we have, discretion, or sometimes there is possibility for others to have, some wiggle room or some discretion. It's the only reason that I'm asking these things. I apologize. I don't mean to put anybody in a sticky situation here. But if there's any possibility for us to be able to make that recommendation.
You can make the recommendation, but I think that would entail going back to council and having the plan revised and approved by full council.
Okay, so who makes the plan? Sorry, Mr. Jordan, for going off topic.
No, you're on topic. Let me just, Hector will answer the question. When the city council adopted the in lieu fee ordinance that allows the developer, once the board determines a tree can't be planted, allows that fee to be paid, and then with those fees, the city finds an alternate location to plant the tree. At the time that ordinance was adopted, it was the desire of the city council that the city council has to approve the locations of where those trees are. So but that does not mean by any means at all that the board can't make its recommendations be known. But ultimately, because of the way council wanted the ordinance, it's up to the full council to make that decision. I think Hector was going to probably explain how the plans for these trees has already been sort of approved by the council, but that doesn't mean that we can't, request, some further changes in that.
Well, what I would respectfully offer as a friendly suggestion would be, rather than, not that I have any problem working with our colleagues in council around this, but since you do have this sort of complexity of an existing approved plan, I would recommend that, there be some outreach to city plants and others to, maybe that, there's the opportunity to plant trees, if you'll forgive the phrase, in lieu of the tree planting plan. And that seems like a really viable sort of thing to do. And this is a low canopy area, I believe, the park. And so maybe that's the smoother path would be a thought on mine.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I'm always thinking money also. I wouldn't want city plants to use their resources for something that we could possibly get out of this. That was all. But if it's too difficult, I mean, city plants, they obviously get trees, and they can work with a local nonprofit and possibly get the CD3 involved to be able to do something like that. That is also a possibility. I have no further questions other than just trying to, no further questions. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gates. One other question for our Renaissance utility player, if you'll forgive Wes, but I'm thinking baseball with your background. I also think, I'm wondering if, in terms of the widening issue with Bassett, as you pointed out, Commissioner Villegas, we're abutting against the river, and I have a sneaking suspicion that even if we put aside, which we can't, and Bureau of Engineering certainly can't, the requirement that widening happen adjacent to the applicant property. I bet there's, and you would know this very well, Commissioner Villegas, probably some complexities in widening that street into property abutting the river. And I don't know, am I completely off base there, Wes or Teresa?
No, you need more approvals from the Army Corps or whoever has jurisdiction or flood control.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay. I don't really have any other questions. Colleagues, thanks. Everybody really, we dug in deep. I certainly support the idea of, and perhaps Commissioner Villegas you would want to do this reaching out to CD3 just to explore opportunities there, like we discussed. It is a bummer to use a scientific term, but like you said, this is also 19 new units, including some affordable, and we've also, I do think from a policy perspective, it's always important to, be cognizant of the fact that we have two departments, including, one department, one bureau, including one of ours, that has, made the determination based on our code, so that's challenging. So, so it is disappointing that we have to remove these trees, but I think I would move to approve the item because I feel like it's necessary to do so. So I'll motion to move. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Any additional questions or comments, Davis, Coloso?
No additional inquiries or questions from me.
Thank you all very much. Wes, thank you for pinch hitting. And thank you, Mr. Benuelos. Hearing no objections, the item is adopted forthwith with the encouragement, again, also of Commissioner Villegas reaching out to CD3 and see if there's some possibilities. Particularly also given that you're also one of our river mavens as well. So that's great. Okay, the item is adopted forthwith. Thank you all.
President Good, I'm sorry for the interruption. City Attorney's prerogative here, just out of respect of the issues sort of brought up in the discussion today. And this is not the first time, and it will not be the last time, that you have before you a project that was approved through some fairly public processes that occurred years ago. In this case, the South Valley Area Planning Commission had a hearing and approved significant elements of this project back in 2014, including the street improvements here, which, by the way, bring the street up to the city's published street standards, which is an issue. One thing I may suggest, just for a future meeting, and not discussion now because we're not agendized, is perhaps having some type of a verbal presentation just to help illustrate for the board and the public how these development processes occur. Because the city's development process does split up decisions into multiple bodies. Decisions with which, when made early, do have an impact later, both under CEQA and just under what conditions are attached to those projects. So it may just be helpful to the board and the public that sees these things coming before the board with perhaps certain expectations. So it's a friendly suggestion for something that we can do in a future meeting where we can bring the people that work on these matters together. Although it's very nice that Wes is here to pinch hit. So just a few, not a discussion for now, but for maybe recommendation for a future meeting.
I think that's not only a friendly, but a helpful suggestion. I think that would be terrific. At the risk of being presumptuous, I wonder if Commissioner Villegas and Commissioner Coloso wouldn't mind sort of identifying a possible presentation between BOE and Streets OA and possibly even,
Yeah, I even think maybe planning and business safety, need to be included as well.
Yep.
All the folks that give these, clearances. I mean, as Mr. Jordan pointed out, this was since 2014. That's a long time ago. And staff come and go.
Yeah.
It'd be imperative to just get them involved as well.
I agree.
So, President Good, if necessary, if you do want to do this at a future meeting, again, or just future item, I could request one of my land use colleagues to come as well, who would potentially be able to answer certain questions that are beyond the purview of our public works staff.
I think that'd be great, Ted. Thank you.
Okay, just let me know and I'll set it up. I'll set up perhaps a land use colleague of mine to come as well.
Okay, great.
This would be an open discussion, not
right.
We wouldn't be giving you advice during the meeting or just the explanation as to how the process works.
I think we'd all benefit. So let's work with Dr. Campos on agendizing once we get something put together, and Commissioners Coloso and Villegas think are agree to take the lead, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and I can't see if Ms. D'Antonio is in the meeting still because of my screen is kind of weird right now. But obviously, if you want to agendize a meeting of that nature, my recommendation would be, we make sure that CFAC is advised. So that it could be, listening, making comments, and all of that.
Let's notice the daylights out of it. That's right. To again use a scientific term. All right.
Mr. President, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, and if your board would like, we can always coordinate with the Planning Commission to do a joint meeting between the Board of Public Works and the Planning Commission. If you'd like to extend it to bring the Planning Commission onto your panel so that your commissions can have that deliberation and discussion.
Well, that's interesting. I'm going to defer to
let's talk about that offline.
Yeah, Villegas and Calosa and Jordan to think through the most productive scenarios, but that's very interesting, Dr. Campos.
The more people you try to include in this, I know we're not discussing it now, the harder it will be to set up.
Well, we may be, what was it, 2014 this started? It may be like 2026 before that gets agendized. All right, I know the CBC is, their agendas are as crazy as ours. But let's work on something. I think it'd be great. And thank you, Ms. D'Antonio, as always. Okay, folks, let's take a quick recess. Take a 5-minute, not 10, take a 5-minute recess. I know you're all grateful. We will return at 11:30 in the a.m. Sound good? All right, see everybody in a second.
The board is now taking a 5-minute recess. We will begin again at 11:30 as stated by the commission. Our president, Commissioner Good, if you are staying on the line, council audio lines are open to the general public. Please keep that in mind.
Dr. Campos, I think we've got quorum, yes?
Let me go ahead and restart the recording at this time. Give me 5 seconds for confirmation. Recording is now started. President Good, I will go ahead and reestablish quorum for you. It is 11:34 in the morning. We have President Good, Vice President Garcia, President Pro Tem Davis, and Commissioners Calosa and Villegas. President Good, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to item number 5. Item number 5 is in CD4. This is is that CD4? I think that may be a mistake. This should be CD11, right, Dr. Campos? It's Hyperion. So, sole source procurement, Hyperion Water Reclamation Plant Capital Improvement Project 2487, 1 mile chamber pump station. Yeah, this is definitely CD11. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the director of the Bureau of Sanitation to request the city engineer to sole source the selection of 1 Rockwell Automation's Allen Bradley Local Control Panel LCP programmable logic controller PLC model compact Logix 5230 with 10 inches human machine interface HMI model 5310 and services software development installation approval startup and commissioning for an amount not to exceed $70,000 for the Hyperion Water Reclamation Plant 1 mile chamber pump station project, and 2, authorize the city engineer to negotiate a price agreement with Rockwell Allen Bradley for the above referenced LCP PLC model compact Logix 5230 with 10 inches HMI model 5310 and services, software development, installation approval, startup, and commissioning, which will be procured and installed by the general contractor awarded the construction project. Mr. Wong, I should charge you $70,000 just for making me read that, but I'll hold. Your board items are always some of my best tongue twisters. So good morning, Ethan. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well, thank you. So yes, the board report before you is requesting a sole source authority for our Hyperion Water Reclamation Plant 1 mile chamber pump station project. And the scope of that project basically is needed due to the current situation with the 1 mile outfall. So at Hyperion, there are actually 2 ocean outfalls, a 1 mile and a 5 mile. The 5 mile is the typically used one where effluent moves to the ocean. The 1 mile is used only during emergencies or for testing and exercising of the flow control gate as needed for preventative maintenance. So when that gate is actually operated, some effluent does, or partially treated effluent does move into that surge chamber. And if not cleaned out, it could be released to the ocean, which is something we don't want to happen. So as of right now, to clear the surge chamber, the plant has to install temporary pumps and a temporary piping system into that chamber and basically pump out that effluent into the inlet of the surface water facility. So obviously this is very labor intensive and requires a lot of coordination with regulatory agencies and whatnot to do this. So we want to avoid this in the future. And so moving forward, we're basically building an automated pump station in the surge chamber to basically pump out any effluent that'll be in that chamber so it can't be moved out to the ocean accidentally. So to do this,
which by the way, the fine that we paid for the 2015 incidents certainly seems relevant in that math.
Correct. Yeah. Fines are well over $2 million for the last time this occurred.
And, Commissioner, on that note, actually, sorry, there's background noise here. When the Regional Water Quality Control Board, in a violation or penalty scenario, one of the things they look at are what things could have been done to avoid that. What would those things have cost? And if you don't do a project that would have cost X, they take that into account. So it's your point, I know, is more just kind of high level background, but it was very much on point, even more than you probably had intended.
Yeah, no, that's a really great note. In effect, we are on full tilt financial notice here. So yeah, okay. Thanks, Ted. Go ahead, Ethan. Sorry about that.
No problem. So yeah, basically with the automation of the plant, we do need a programmable logic controller, a local control panel, as well as monitoring software and whatnot. Currently, LA Sanitation has made it a use of Allen and Bradley Rockwell automations, both their LCP PLCs, for monitoring of different pumps and whatever throughout the city and at the 4 different water reclamation plants. To date, 50 LCP PLCs from Rockwell Automation have been installed at the different plants. And so we are requesting to sole source again these devices so that we can seamlessly integrate the new control systems into Hyperion's current monitoring control system to decrease any compatibility issues. So that's the base justification for the report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ethan. Does somebody in this process get the new title of City Logic Controller? Just curious. I'll take that. All right, colleagues, questions. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. I was going to say, just like at LAX, right? The controller.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ethan, for the presentation. You always do an eloquent job in explaining very difficult subjects in manners that we can all understand. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for that thorough explanation. As I was listening to your presentation, just out of curiosity, do we need to do any of this type of work at any of our other facilities? You know, I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking.
That's a very good question. Maybe the plant staff could better answer that than I'm not aware, because you know, Hyperion actually is the most downstream treatment plants. Both the Donald C. Tillman and the LA Glendale plant, their effluent ultimately, after it's treated, does flow again to Hyperion and is treated again, or the sludge is treated down at Hyperion. But I think Sarabhat Kang is on the line, so maybe he could add onto that if he knows if Terminal Island does something similar. I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, hi. I'm not too sure about Terminal Island, but I do know, but Ethan is right. LAG and DCT do discharge to Hyperion, so Hyperion is the primary point of discharge for 3 of the plants.
Okay, I was just wondering because I know I visited Terminal Island before, and it's, you know, near the like Long Beach, or like, you know, that area. So just didn't know if we had those types of needs out there. Okay, that was all my question. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. You mentioned the Rockwell Automation, and so they've done all of the other equipment at Hyperion, correct? And this is why we're going with a sole source so that it's consistent.
That's correct. Yeah, the overall plant has a distributed control system that has a central monitoring station, and all of the Rockwell Automation LCPs and PLCs are connected to that. So you basically have one source of control and monitoring. So yeah, there are several of these devices already installed at Hyperion for different pumps and valves and things of that nature.
Okay, and how long have we had, just out of curiosity, how long have we had that contract with them?
I'm not aware of the time frame of how long it's been in existence. Maybe Sarabhat can answer that if he's aware.
Yeah, I'm not too aware, but I do know we had 3 recent projects that were also approved for the installation of these Allen Bradley products.
Okay, same provider, Rockwell?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And just wondering, so if we're ever, you know, in the possibility to diversify, seems like they've been at it for some time. But I can understand, you know, if we need to have, like, you know, components, you know, be working together, I understand where you're coming from. All right, that is it for me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Vegas, those were excellent comments. You have these issues come up, and these kinds of projects for operation and maintenance, with operational purposes and maintenance purposes. It's very important for the bureaus to have sort of this type of using the same equipment. So I just, on the record, concur joint report to bureaus. These are sort of mission critical things.
I was going to ask Ted and confirm that you're copacetic here.
Absolutely.
Okay, right. Thank you. Vice President Garcia, any questions?
Thank you so much. I don't have any questions. Wesley, good report, like always. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis?
Yes, Ethan, thank you so much for the report. I was just really trying to understand the whole process here. So this specifically is the 1 mile outfall, correct, that we are dealing with in terms of your proposal here today, correct?
That's correct.
And then it works in conjunction with the 5 mile outfall.
Correct.
Is that correct? And we use the 1 mile alternatively to prevent an overflow from the 5 Mile outfall. Is that kind of close to what?
It's close. Yeah, the 1 mile is typically used, let's say, for like if there's a very intense rainstorm, water flow to the plant all at one time. It may be needed to use the 1 mile outfall in that case. Maybe Sarah can chime in on the use of it a little bit better than I think.
Yeah, I can add a little bit. So the 5 Mile is the typical discharge point. Anytime when we have emergencies with the pumps over at the 5 Mile, or if we have to do any maintenance, or I think Ethan mentioned earlier, any preventive maintenance to the 5 Mile, we would need to request permission from the regional board to discharge through the 1 mile, since it's not a permitted discharge point at the moment.
And the 1 mile structure is much older than the 5 mile.
That's correct.
Structure. And also, you mentioned the word discharging effluent. Effluent is treated water that has already been treated by the plant that goes through this to the Santa Monica, what is it? Bay?
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And what's the time period of the completion of this project? In other words, how long does it take us in this whole procedure here that will be done by the Rockwell Group to be completed? What's the anticipated time period frame?
So based on our current schedule, we're hoping to award this project near the end of the year, so either November, December of this year. From that point, building the actual the pumps and the new pump station in general will probably be a year to a year and a half of work. And the components of the Rockwell automation, will be a few months. And obviously, at the end of construction, we do a very intense testing plan for that to make sure everything's functioning. So it'll be during that period as well. We'll test those.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mike. Commissioner Closa.
Thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions for Mr. Wong. I think he did a great job explaining the project and understanding and sharing the need for why this is important. So no questions from me.
Thank you, Commissioner Closa. Great job, Ethan. I mean, I gotta say, hearing you describe it versus the inordinate amount of time I was in the 7-page report was very helpful.
Can I chime in? I just want to apologize to Ethan. I'm sorry, Ethan. I called you Wesley. Sorry, I didn't have the screen. I had the agenda on my screen and not the Zoom screen on, and so I just thought Wesley was the one speaking. So I'm so sorry.
No problem.
I know who you guys are.
And I would just building on Ted's point. I mean, this is smart. Spending $70,000 to help facilitate and ensure performance on this front is not only right, but it's smart. So thank you. And again, I know we have affirmation from the city attorney that the sole source, which is, by the way, as a reminder, what we're actually voting on is giving the authority to do a sole source here. We have that from the city attorney. So do I have a motion to move the item forward?
So moved.
Got Davis on the first, got Colosa as a second. Villegas, Garcia, any concerns or questions?
No questions, thank you.
All right, hearing no objections or concerns, the item is adopted forthwith. Thank you very much. And have a great weekend, okay? Are you on the next one too?
I am, yes.
Of course, okay. And you're gonna torture me with this description, I know. So another sole source procurement. I think you do this on purpose,
Mr. President, before you go on to item number 6, just for the record, we will make a correction on the board report to reflect Council District 11 on item number 5. The report says 4, but we will make an administrative correction on that. No amendment required.
Thank you, Dr. Campos. That would be a very large project to move Hyperion to CD4. There could be objections too. So thank you. Ethan got my joke. All right, item 6, CD15. This is another sole source procurement, Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant Advanced Water Purification Facility Capital Improvement Project 5124. Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant Advanced Water Purification Facility Advanced Oxidation Process Effluent Recirculation. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the director to request the city engineer to sole source the selection of Xylem. Forgive if anyone from Xylem is on here and I butchered the name. Xylem Inc. Process equipment, control valves, local control panel, programmable logic controller, hardware and services, engineering, software development, graphics, installation, loop checks, integration with distributed control system, functional testing, startup and commissioning, operation and maintenance manuals, revisions, optimization plan revisions in compliance with the operating permit by the Division of Drinking Water and the California State Water Resources Control Board for an amount not to exceed $320,000 for the Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant Advanced Water Purification Facility Advanced Oxidation Process Effluent Recirculation Project. And 2, authorize the city engineer to negotiate a price agreement with Xylem Inc. for the above referenced process equipment and services which will be procured and installed by the general contractor awarded the construction project. Okay, thank you, Mr. Wong. Please go ahead.
Thank you, President Good, and thank you for reading through all of that. That was amazing. So, good morning to everybody again. This is Ethan Wong, Bureau of Engineering, Environmental Engineering Division. So the board report before you is a request to sole source items needed for our advanced water purification facility, the Advanced Oxidation Process Effluent Recirculation project. So currently at the Terminal Island facility, the Advanced Water Purification Facility was originally completed in 2001. There was a phase 2 upgrade to the system that was completed in 2017, which consisted of this Advanced Oxidation Process equipment, or AOP, I'll say, to shorten it. So Xylem was the actual installer of the original AOP equipment that was installed in 2017. And Xylem is also used on various pumping plants, or their products are used at various pumping plants throughout the city. So currently what happens at Terminal Island is, while water is running through and getting treated in the Advanced Water Purification Facility, there are certain times when we do have a short-term loss of compliance with the drinking water standards. And basically when that happens, the treated water will currently enter the recycled water stabilization tank, and that's where the treated water is. And once loss of compliance water, or non-spec water as we call it, enters that tank, it basically spoils all of the water. So 800,000 gallons of recycled water have to be flushed out. The process has to stop and be restarted again to make sure we ensure compliance. So to avoid this laborious shutdown and potential waste of 800,000 gallons of treated water, we're basically adding a recirculation line from the AOP back into the system. So water, instead of going into the tank, will basically be rerouted back into the microfiltration wet well, which is basically the start of the advanced water purification process. So instead of basically contaminating good water, we'll just basically reroute the non-compliant water back into the system so that it's treated again. to do this work, because we will be connecting into the current AOP that Xylem built, we are requesting to sole source Xylem again to basically add on additional process equipment and control valves, a new LCP and PLC hardware, and basically get their services to build this new recirculation line that'll greatly improve the efficiency and use of the current AWPF that's at Terminal Island. That's the basic gist of what we're asking to do in this board report, so I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
You did it again, Ethan. You made it make sense. So we'll open up the floor. Vice President Garcia, any questions? Vice President Garcia, any, oh, sorry.
Sorry, President Good. I don't have any questions, Ethan, on this. Well, hang on, I actually do. Did you say that when our drinking water is, I think there's like a fluctuation in our drinking water, then this kind of kicks in? Is that what I'm hearing?
So at Terminal Island, our plant basically purifies water once it's gone through secondary treatment. It then goes through the advanced water purification facility treatment. So that takes the secondary effluent, which is really clean water, and basically cleans it to beyond drinking water standards. And so there's a recycled water stabilization tank that the final product water goes into for storage and distribution to customers. So there are certain times when the AWPF has issues, and this causes non-compliance of the Department of Drinking Water standards for the AWPF product water. So that's the issue. We're trying to avoid contaminating with non-spec water with all of the compliant water that's stored in the recycled water stabilization tank, which is roughly about 800,000 gallons.
Got it. And this company, Xylem Inc., is this the first time we are going to contract them to do this type of work?
No, they actually supplied the existing AOP that is currently at Terminal Island. They fabricated that and installed it for the 2017 Phase 2 project. And they also have, we use several of their pumps in different pump stations throughout the plant. They've made an ozone generating system that is at Donald C. Tillman. So they've done quite a few other projects or provided equipment for quite a few other projects throughout the city.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's it for me right now. Thank you. Thank you for answering my questions, Ethan.
Thanks, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis, any questions or comments? Oh, you want to come back to you? Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions. I'm good. Thank you very much, Ethan.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. President Pro Tem Davis, any questions?
Yeah, I just had a question for Mr. Ethan. I'm hesitant about asking it after you told him he explained things so well. So I was curious, obviously, always about the technology of water, because I think we need to know a little bit more about it so that we can certainly intelligently not only support it, but make some decisions that will be complementary to the best interests of the city. So here it is. This water that we are purifying, where does it come from?
It comes from it's basically wastewater that enters Terminal Island and goes through the standard processing where sludge is removed from the wastewater and other contaminants, basically through the primary and secondary treatments. So sludge is digested at the plant and removed from the water. that water then enters the advanced water purification facility and is further treated to basically disinfect it and clear any more contaminants, potential viruses, things like that from the water, so that it meets and it actually exceeds drinking water standards.
So we're able to basically transform this water to drinking water, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So the water that's carried from the sewer system, and
we're able to treat it to the level that it becomes, with the technology that we employ, it ends up being drinking water.
Absolutely.
Okay. So this technology is called what?
The specific technology that we are going to be adding the recirculation line, or the overall advanced water purification facility?
The overall purification process.
Got it.
Does it have a name?
Yeah, it's routinely called the advanced water purification process. So that's what happens after secondary treatment happens. So the tertiary effluent from the secondary treatment is then treated basically a third time to the.
How does it differ from desalinization?
Desalinization has to do with the removal of saline or salt from seawater or ocean water. This is actual water that is from our sewer system, so water that's gone through our residents' houses and used in showers and toilets and sinks and that kind of stuff. So that water, once it goes down somebody's sink and enters the sewage system, it travels through our extensive city sewer system and ultimately ends up at one of our 4 reclamation plants. So the impurities and the solids that are in that wastewater are basically cleaned out. And at Terminal Island, there's an extra component of the treatment, which is the advanced water purification facility, so that the water can be basically recycled and reused.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Which we also do at high purity.
Correct. Yeah, at some level.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Davis. Commissioner Coloso.
No questions for me. I thought Mr. Wong did a great job as always and gave us a nice little background there with Dr. Davis's question about how water travels from our daily use to our treatment plant. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have no further questions. Mr. Jordan, you are comfortable with the sole source assignment here?
Absolutely, and I very much enjoyed Ethan's presentation as well. As many of you know, I was an engineer in my prior life, so I always like it when we get into the weeds of this stuff. So, and the advanced water purification, this is really, really, really cutting edge kind of stuff. So the city of Los Angeles, through its recycling efforts of our water resources, is just really, I couldn't be more proud to be even tangentially involved with the work that Bureau of Sanitation and Bureau of Engineering are doing here. So bottom line is, I concur in the Bureau's recommendation here.
I actually do have one quick question, Ethan, which is, what leads to the periodic or just occasional non-compliance in the water that leads to the necessity for this process?
It's a great question, and I'm going to actually refer you to Michael Fan, who's from our Terminal Island plant. He's on the line. So, Michael, if you could address President Good's question.
Okay. Good afternoon, President Good and commissioners. So there's like things like, for example, say there's a prolonged power outage that like shuts off the equipment. So like typically, the water is continuously going through, and like there's like a chlorine residual that's added to ensure that the water stays like within compliance and within permit regulations. But during this prolonged power outage, basically, like this flow might stop, and so like over time, chlorine like dissipates. So then like after a certain amount of time, the water may not remain in compliance. So we just want to make sure, because we want to be 100% reliable, so that if there's any potential chance of non-compliance, that we can recirculate this water back to the process, so that not only do we not waste the water, but we maintain compliance in all situations.
That's helpful. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that.
Sure.
All right, I'm good. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
The zeal is awesome. Coloso was there first. I got seconds from Davis and Villegas. Garcia.
I have no issues.
Okay, so hearing no concerns, the item is adopted forthwith. Thank you very much, Ethan. Really appreciate it. Have a great weekend, okay?
Thank you, you too.
Okay. All right. That brings us, item number 7 has been continued. We're going to move to item number 8. We have a near battalion of sanitation here for item 8. This is a request for proposals, residential special materials program, and scheduled emergency and hazardous waste from unsheltered communities care services. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the director of the Bureau of Sanitation to distribute and advertise the transmitted RFP for residential special materials program and scheduled emergency and hazardous waste from unsheltered communities care services. 2, evaluate proposals and select the most qualified proposers based on established rating evaluation criteria for each task. 3, negotiate contracts with the most qualified proposers for each task. And 4, return to the Board of Public Works for authority to award and execute the contract of contracts. I see, I got a Domingo sighting, I got a Chief Wong sighting, I got a Gonzo sighting. Looks like I got a crew of folks at sanitation exec offices. Hello, folks. Y'all been very patient. Thank you all. And jump right in. Floor is yours.
Morning, President Good and Commissioners. This is John Park from Solid Resources Citywide Recycling Division. The current contract with the Clean Harbors Environmental Services supports a household hazardous waste collection programs and as-needed cleanup service in LA San. This contract will expire in November 2023. We are soliciting for multiple qualified contractors to continue these services. This request for proposal has 2 tasks. Task A is for household hazardous waste collection and recycling programs for the residential special materials program. It mainly supports 7 safe centers, reuse material programs, mobile collection programs, used oil collection programs, and other recycling programs. It also supports the disposal of any other LA San hazardous materials and waste from their operations. Task B is for any as-needed hazardous waste cleanup programs and emergency cleanup programs for Watershed Protection Division and unsheltered community cleanup programs for Livability Service Division. SRCRD seeks board approval to advertise this RFP and evaluate and negotiate contract with the bidder's qualification. I'm glad to answer any of your questions and concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Park. Does LSD have anything they want to add?
Good afternoon, Board President, members. Domingo Roscoe, Livability Services Division, joined by our Chief Environmental Compliance Inspector, Howard Wong, Chief Barriga as well, from Watershed. Obviously, this is important for us at LA San because of LSD's public right-of-way servicing streets, alleys, sidewalks, including other public areas, including the work that WPD does as far as removing hazardous waste, various types. It's very beneficial to all who make use of the right-of-way. So we in LSD ask for the continued support of this program and this item, and we're here to answer any questions should you have.
Thanks, Domingo.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, let's open this up. President Pro Tem Davis, you want to kick us off?
No inquiry for me on this item.
Gotcha, Mike. Thank you. Commissioner Villegas?
Thank you for that. I don't have, I mean, this is just to issue the RFP, you know, on this program so that we can get other folks, bring other folks to do some of this work for us. I'm glad that this is going to be issued, and I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Coloso?
Thank you, President Good. It's nice to see the LA Sand team out in full force this morning. I just have a few follow-up questions. I know this is a really big RFP for LA Sand operations. For the existing contract that we have now, I know it doesn't expire until 2023. Just curious, how long have we had that contract in place with Clean Harbors?
It was since 2012.
2012, got it. And this is essentially what the RFP is for, is what would be potentially an 11-year contract.
That is correct.
Got it. Can you go over any differences between the existing contract and any changes that you may have made for this RFP before us? Was there anything different that you changed with the services that we're asking for this one before us?
There is the service-wise is the same. Only difference is this time we are soliciting multiple contractors on board. So we have a sanitation will have a more option to choose the contractors in any different situations.
Got it. And can you talk a little bit about the timeline of when we can expect to see this back at board, when you're releasing the RFP? I know in the version that's in the board report, for instance, I know that some of the dates for the pre I know we're still TBD, so just wanted to get a better understanding of what that timeline looks like.
Timeline, I like to bring it back to your approval before this year. There is a lot of components involved in here, especially selecting contractors. On task A is a big contractors, like as you see, Clean Harbors, and selecting out of subcontractors. It will be challenging because during the pandemic, there's a lot of small businesses go out of business, so our primary contractor will have a difficult time to selecting their subcontractors. So we will take some time, but I'd like to bring it back to board approval sometime October this year.
And then when are you releasing the RFP?
As soon as you approve, we'll have a little, probably next week, we will post it, yes.
Okay. And can you confirm the contract amount? I know there's an amount listed in the board report with what the program director approved, but just know that sometimes that may be different. Can you just confirm what the amount is?
Yes, it is correct in the board report, $432 million and some changes. Over 11 years. So over 11, this cost is, this budget is for over 11 years.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. And so that's the total budget over the course of the 11 years. Got it. And then just the last question from me. Again, I know this is a very important part of LACN operation. Can you talk a little bit about the outreach that you're planning to do around including more businesses at the table? I know right now we only have Clean Harbors as one, but just curious what work is happening, knowing that this is a huge opportunity to bring more people to the table.
Yes, it is very challenging, but I'll defer to my colleague here, Mary Benson. She's in charge of the outreach program. So would you answer, Mary?
Hi, Commissioner. Thank you. Over the process of developing this RFP, we've done several outreach programs. The first was in January of 2020 when we looked at qualified businesses, minority businesses listed in LA Bavan. There were of the 142 that met our criteria, only 23 were minority businesses that qualified under the scope of work for our RFP. And so, as you can see in LA Bavan, there are few subcontractors or contractors even listed that are qualified to respond to our RFP. In November 2020, in coordination with our contracts unit, we sent out an email to outreach to all LA Bavan listed companies with any type of disposal for waste to try and get them to register and add our codes to their listed Bavan codes. And so that is one of the things. The other major change that we've made is to separate our household hazardous waste recycling program from emergency and scheduled hazardous waste street cleanups in areas where Los Angeles has jurisdiction. In that hope that we're limiting the scope of work to cleanups, will encourage small and minority businesses that are currently listed in Bavan to respond to that Task B portion of the RFP.
Got it. And so that's why I see now. That's really helpful background. I appreciate it. I don't think I have any other questions. I look forward to seeing how this unfolds. Again, I know it's a really important part of LACN operation. And so this is a big RFP before us. So thanks for your work, and it's nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coloso. Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good, and hello, sanitation team. It's nice to see you guys all in the office too, by the way. I know I was briefed on this, but I just have a couple questions and basic ones also. Did you say that the current contract will end in 2023?
That's correct.
So we're really ahead of the game this time, right?
No, not really.
Oh, I was gonna give you guys kudos. All right, take it back. I'll take it back. Okay, why aren't we ahead of the game? Not that I'm saying why aren't we, but what is made, it feels like we're ahead of the game because we're in 2021, but why is it that you don't think we're not ahead of the game?
First of all, by expecting this all the approval of this contract, new contract, by June of 2023. Because of this size of contract the Clean Harbor is performing now is 11 years old, and some sort of a closeout need to be done.
I see.
Yeah, so that will take, I don't know, hopefully they can do it within 6 months period, but may even take it longer. And also negotiating part, it will be very extensive, especially task A. There is a lot of chemicals involved, a lot of other services involved. So the negotiation and the drafting contract will be very extensive.
Right. I imagine that from the contract that we had with them, was it, you correct me if I'm wrong, 10 years ago or somewhat around that timeline, right? To now, it's going to look different because of the increase of material and, you know, just the stuff that you're picking up now from our on-house population. So it's a completely, almost a different contract, and I imagine it's also a higher amount now, right?
Absolutely, that's correct. And the waste stream has changed, so we have to reflect that changes to our contract. And we also have to be ahead of game. So during the 11 years, we have to prepare what's future waste stream to reflect in our contract.
And I, you know, I apologize for not reading through your RFP, but I imagine that you have a clause in there somewhere saying that within now into 11 years, you know, things might change again, right? You know, we're hoping it will be a decrease, but we just don't know, right? So I'm sure there's something in there as you negotiate with whomever is the winner of this. And okay, and so that leads me to my next question. Are we looking to hopefully receive multiple, obviously we want multiple bidders, but are we hoping to contract with multiple agencies? Or do we just want to go with what we've been doing with one?
No, we are looking for multiple contractors. So
task B is
at task A, hopefully we can have multiple bidders and qualified bidders, and then we can select more than one contractors. And task B, probably Domingo can answer it better. So I'm going to defer to Domingo to answer that question.
Domingo?
Good afternoon. Obviously, our waste stream is as varied as you could imagine. There's just quite a bit of material. And even though, you know, we're always looking at how we can protect public health and safety and ensure that whenever any of this material, whether it's illegally dumped hazardous waste from a corporation or if it's something of bio-waste, I know we were talking about Hyperion and AWPF and sewer systems earlier, you know, that system also needs to be looked at as a separate system from our storm drain system. So we have to protect the storm drain system when we're looking at the public right-of-way. And, you know, Chiefs Wong and Barriga have quite a bit of experience in that regard. You know, and they can speak to protecting that component of it.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Good and board members. Howard Wong with Livability Service Division and Watershed Protection.
Good to see you, Howard.
How you doing? Hey, just provide some additional clarifications as far as our Livability Services Division. When our cleaning and rapid engagement team, known as our CARE teams, utilize Clean Harbors in their contractual and supportive role during our cleanup operations, that's going to be tied to our field teams out there. We know through metrics and previous cleanups that we are finding waste for, you know, Clean Harbors to abate, package, manifest, and transport of these household and special waste to a certified disposal facility, a transport disposal, TSDF, if you would call it, right? As mandated through state and federal mandates. Again, these wastes are separate from our municipal trash waste disposal, so we will like to have additional subcontractors to assist us in that. And when they do that, it ensures public health and safety and, you know, for the community and the environment as a package, not just removing the trash, but the hazardous waste, hazardous materials comes with that trash as well.
Yes, of course, I understand that. And also you're protecting the ocean at the end of the day, which is exactly what we also want to do. Okay, I don't have any additional questions, more technical.
I think Chief Riga had a comment.
Oh, yes.
Jonzo, you're up.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Nice to see everyone. Thank you. I just wanted to add that it's essential to add more contractors to the contract. it'll increase response times, increase competition, et cetera. Clean Harbors has kind of cornered the market here. And I think ultimately, the more even the smaller companies providing the ability for them to get into this game would just help us all around. The program is becoming bigger and bigger every time. One of the essential things that we did was we separated our emergency services into planned, scheduled cleanups, and it's reduced our costs. So it just provides more opportunity for people to just assist with maybe scheduled cleanups, and then provide Clean Harbors the opportunity to also even sub out or have competitors, which is essential for us to continue our operations, because right now they could say it's just going to take 4 hours to get out there today. They don't have anybody else to compete against. So I think this is important. So thank you.
Well, thank you for making that point, Mr. Berga, because it is important to do this. Hopefully we can get a multitude or an array of different contractors, because the demand has increased by a lot. I don't know how much. I can say 100 to whatever 200, but you guys know the numbers, and we thank you all for pivoting to making sure that this gets tackled the right way. And that we also, I just want to make sure that as we move forward, that we have the flexibility to pivot when we can, because we didn't see this coming 10 years ago. We didn't see this huge increase that has just happened now. And our goal as a city is to decrease this, but we have a long way to go for that. So thank you for that. And I do hope that we can do a massive type of outreach in whatever way we can help to the sanitation team on increasing your efforts on that. We're more than happy to support that.
Thank you.
That's all for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Vice President Garcia. At the risk of being master of the obvious or redundant, these are both endeavors here are just hugely important. And so the scope, the girth of these contracts is matched by their import. And so I'm even though Mr. Park, I know anytime you're in charge of an RFP, feel very much under the gun. I'm still pleased to be hearing this in the spring of 21 for a contract that expires in 23. So that's maybe it's not ahead of the game, but in board world, it feels like you guys are on top of it.
Yeah, that's exactly why I said that. I felt like, oh wow, we're really ahead of this game. So I give it back to you guys. Kudos to you guys.
You go ahead and assume absolute urgency, Mr. Parker, team.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We encourage it. For LSD, obviously, I work with you gentlemen a lot, and particularly on these issues, and I'm certainly very familiar with the role of our current contractor. I would agree that diversity in terms of subs, and I mean both diversity in terms of our traditional thinking in terms of wanting to have as inclusive a landscape of contractors as possible, but also diversity in terms of just plenty of people to do the work would be helpful today, much less 2 years from now. Query, what, from you just given the exceedingly fluid dynamics that we're all dealing with and that you guys are with in terms of LSD, the changing dynamics that we are invariably looking at, not just in terms of streams, but actually just in terms of enterprise, ranging from Carter settlement, et cetera. How would y'all distinguish some of the dynamics in this RFP from what we currently have at our fingertips with Clean Harbors? And I don't want to limit this to LSD, Mr. Park and team, I would open that to y'all as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. With any contract, a new RFP, we always want to look at not only what we believe is the future of where we're going with our business and how we handle different waste streams, but what also businesses can share with us as their innovations and how that can be integrated into our processes. So you know, we as a utility, we support diversity in all its meanings and try to figure out what all of that looks like, so that we want to be fluid enough to accept changes in the industry, but also have enough direction from our side on addressing the material that we need to when we need to do that. So we hope that there's enough flexibility within this to do that as we look forward and work with Mr. Park and his teams to complete this.
Good to hear. I feel like a challenge we've had is that the existing contract simply doesn't afford y'all as much flexibility, I think, on either side, both in terms of the safe centers and hazardous materials, but also in terms of our street strategy. So I think flexibility and, again, diversity of subs, et cetera, would be really key imperatives. It's not to get in your business, but, well, that's my job to get in your business. So it's really good to hear that. Mr. Park, Drew, anything y'all would add to that question?
Yes, this is a very challenging RFP, and we are continuously outreach to the small businesses and to participate in not only the task B and task A, which is a lot more challenging and has a lot of requirements and certification. But yeah, we were continuously seeking other industries, small industries, to participate in, and so city and LA Sanitation has a more flexibility to choose the contractors and the cleanup services as well.
To y'all's credit, I would just echo that. I don't think 99% of the human population has any idea how complex the regulations and obligations and requirements and work of hazardous material disposal and repurposing really entail. So I think this is one of the most complex RFPs that'll be going on in the city over the next couple of years. So you have our support in that. I will say one of my daughters and my favorite trips every few weeks is Saturday, Sunday to Hyperion to the Safe Center to drop her stuff off. I tell her all about Hyperion. Sometimes she listens, sometimes she doesn't. And then we stop and get you over the way. So I love the Safe Center. So thank you all. I have no further questions. And of course, LSD knows that we love them. I have no further questions. I will move to approve the item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Any objections, or concerns, or epiphanies? Caloza Davis Garcia.
I support. No questions.
All good? Yeah. Okay. Hearing no objections, the item is adopted forthwith. Go forward, folks, and get this thing done. Looking forward to seeing the outcomes, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for your patience today, too. We really appreciate it, okay?
Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, y'all. All right. Colleagues, that brings us to item number 9. Wesley's back. Wesley's been peppered throughout the meeting tonight, or this morning. Item number 9. Nice short one, Wesley. Thank you. CD 13. Revocable permit, 6220 West Selma Avenue, balconies, scrim panel projections, deck projections, architectural projections, landscape parkways, and irrigation. Recommending the board, 1, authorize the city engineer to issue a revocable permit to encroach within the public right-of-way subject to the conditions listed. Encroachment, Selma Avenue. A, 7 balconies per floor for a total of 28 balconies, 11 feet 6 inches wide and encroaching 6 feet 6 inches, starting from the 3rd floor to the 6th floor. B, 5 balconies, 1 feet 6 inches wide, encroaching 6 feet 6 inches on the 7th floor. C, 1 balcony per floor for a total of 5 balconies, 10 feet wide and encroaching 6 feet 6 inches, starting from the 3rd floor to the 7th floor. D, 4 balconies, 12 feet 6 inches wide and encroaching 6 feet 6 inches on the 8th floor. E, 1 curved balcony per floor for a total of 5 balconies, 38 feet 5 inches wide and encroaching up to 6 feet 6 inches, starting from the 3rd floor to the 7th floor at the southeast corner of the intersection of Selma and Argyle Avenue. F, 1 curved balcony 54 feet 2 inches wide and encroaching up to 6 feet 6 inches on the 8th floor at the southeast corner of the intersection of Selma Avenue and Argyle Avenue. G, 1 architectural projection with stucco finish 109 feet 6 inches wide and encroaching 2 feet on the roof. H, 1 deck projection 81 feet wide and encroaching 6 feet 6 inches on the 8th floor. I, scrim panel projection attached to balconies encroaching 7 feet 6 inches from the 3rd floor to the 7th floor. J, 4 foot 6 inch wide by 62 foot 10 inch long landscape parkways and irrigation system. Okay, Wesley, talk to us.
Good afternoon. I caught myself, I almost said morning. Wesley Tenageri, Bureau of Engineering, Central District Office. As you mentioned, the location is 6220 West Selma Avenue within Council District 13. It's at the corner of Argyle and Selma. It's a large mixed-use residential and retail project. I believe it's 7 stories. As you mentioned, also there's several balconies and architectural projections that are encroaching into the public right-of-way. The building code normally allows these things, but because they're encroaching more than the standard 4 feet, we're bringing this to the board. However, the projections are encroaching on both Selma Avenue and Argyle. There's no controversies or any opposition that we're aware of. They add to the architectural design of the building. We have consulted with Council District Office, and I believe we talked to Craig Bullock of Council Member Mitchell Farrell's office, and they concur with our recommendations. So if they comply with all of our conditions, we recommend the authorization to issue this revocable permit, and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Colleagues, President Pro Tem Davis, any questions?
None for me.
Okay. Vice President Garcia?
I do. Thank you, Wesley. I have just a couple basic ones. Will this, I know that you wouldn't consider it and put it into bring it all the way to the board if it wasn't, but I just want to double check. Is this safe? I know that it's encroaching more beyond our normal standard. I just want to know safety, I guess, precautions around this, and what are we doing to mitigate that situation if there is any?
So, the regular building code allows for balconies in general, which can encroach over the public right-of-way. These are just extending another about 2.5 feet. So we don't feel there's any other liability, and the revocable permit requires the property owner to sign a waiver of damages to help cover the city, and the revocable also requires liability insurance to be renewed annually. So those are the things that the revocable permit helps to cover the city with damage and injury.
Got it. Is this is it a new project that's going to be built, or is it one of the existing ones that'll be remodeled?
No, it's a brand new building.
I see. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you for that, Wesley. That's all for me right now, President Good.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Commissioner Villegas?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Also, Wesley, I don't have any questions. I'm more of like a process question. You know, I didn't realize that our board needed to approve these types of like this level of detail. What's the difference between like an exemption that maybe an applicant would be, a developer would be like required, as opposed to coming to the board on something like this?
Well, if they fall within the 4 feet of the building code allowance, then we allow them to do that. Because it extended beyond the 4 feet, we would normally say, no, you cannot do that. But we give them the option of appealing our decision of going over the 4 feet by coming to the Board of Public Works. And that's why we are coming to the board with this.
Okay. All right. And in your opinion then is, all right, I'm just wondering, in your opinion, is this still safe? You know, as continuing on, you know, Commissioner Garcia's, you know, questions. I see that, you know, it's the encroachment, some of it is, you know, just by 11 feet, 6 feet, it just varies by a little. Do you know if the developer is on the line today?
We let them know, but I'm not sure if anybody from the developer is on.
Commissioner Villegas, I do not have any members from the general public or the developer on the line at this time. Okay.
All right. Wesley, in your opinion then, if they're not making like our requirements and they're coming here to, you know, get an approval for this, is, you know, as your opinion of an engineer, is this still feasible?
Oh, definitely it's feasible. And, you know, if we felt it really wasn't safe, I don't believe we would be recommending approval of this. We would have a different recommendation if we didn't feel if it was safe engineering wise or to the public.
Okay, I appreciate it. Then it's more of a process.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Mike?
No questions for me.
Okay. Mr. Tangieri, just also building on it. So I'm clear, and this is also a process question. So the reason we're seeing this is not, again, because you have BOE has the authority to grant our permits and the discretion thereof. But it is that we have our permits allowing encroachments over the standard 4-foot POW encroachment. Is that sort of the demarcation line typically that you would apply?
So process-wise, if their balconies and architectural projections fell within the building permit allowances or requirements, then we would say, you know, we wouldn't require a revocable. We would say, okay, you comply and you're good to go. But because they're going beyond, the building code gives the authority to Public Works to whether to approve or not. And I believe in the past, we really haven't allowed these at all in the past, meaning going over the 4 feet. So this is another reason why we bring it to the board, is we're seeing this like there's maybe have been 2 or 3 other ones that have come before this. So we're trying to make sure we're covering our bases.
So I'm gonna just ask you, if we haven't typically done it before, why should we do it now?
You know, again, as I mentioned before, we really didn't believe that there was any danger to the public or more liability to the pedestrians or vehicular traffic below. So these are all above grade. You know, they're not going to affect our trees or the street lights that are out there to maintain those items. So That's why we're allowing this. It's basically 2.5 feet past what we would normally allow the 4 feet.
Okay. Do I have any other questions or comments?
I haven't gone.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jessica. Please, Commissioner Closa, forgive me. Commissioner Closa.
Thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions, so that's a good thing. Mr. Tangieri briefed me on this. I understand it's a request that we would normally not see, but again, as Mr. Tangieri mentioned, in abundance of caution to make it transparent when these requests do come forward, they are bringing it before the board because they are unusual. And you know, I think BOE, Mr. Tangieri really wanted to give the board an opportunity to do what we're doing today, which is to have a public discussion about it and to answer any questions or concerns that we may have when taking a look at this. But I was briefed on this. I don't have any questions. I think Mr. Tangieri did a good job of explaining this project and request.
Thank you, and my apologies again. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Okay, thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Do I have a second?
I think Commissioner Villegas did, but I think her audio wasn't working.
Okay. Okay. So, will I take it as a second, Commissioner Villegas?
Yeah, that's good.
All right.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries.
No. I didn't hear either, Mike. So, any objections or follow-up questions, Closa or Garcia?
None.
I guess my only, I mean, I was, we'll move forward with this one, Wesley, but I guess my only concern around this would be that we're setting a standard now, and more folks are going to want to do this. Is this something we're looking at in the bigger picture, and how much are we going to allow these folks to do? You know, right now it's 2.5 feet. Obviously, you'll always know when it's safe or not. That's what you guys are in the engineer department. But I just don't want this to be like, okay, well, now everybody can do this.
Right, and we can take that into consideration. And, you know, coming to the board is a process, and it involves a fee and time to go through the board report process. So it's something not taken lightly to the developers. And we can definitely talk with the other district offices and the deputy and city engineer about how we want to handle these in the future. We can definitely do that.
I really want to make sure that we do that. Okay.
Commissioner, this is Ted. It doesn't create a legal precedent that requires us to give this kind of approval, but I think your question points to a much bigger issue, is why wouldn't a developer feels it could make a more attractive building by having a bigger balcony, simply undergo the relatively minor cost to do this when you consider what they're spending on building their building, to simply ask the board for its approval and say, you approve this other one, so why shouldn't you approve mine? You're not legally required to. The Bureau will take these things very seriously, but your question is still a good one. It doesn't create a legal obligation for us to now start approving all of these. However, more may ask. And the cost to come to the board, it's not insignificant, but compared to the cost of building the building, yeah, it's small. Now, these are revocable, they can be revoked, but I'm not sure when the last time we ever revoked a revocable permit was either.
Yeah, and then once it's all done, are we gonna then make them cut the balcony shorter? I mean, it just gets us into all that other conversation. You know, honestly,
you're not bound to do this in the future.
Right. Thank you for that. And I want to make sure that we set that straight, that this is not a standard now. We're going to just be okay with increasing balconies. I think we'll look at the big picture, and you did a thorough report on how this is okay, but I guess we'll just take it case by case from now on. You know, what really does worry me overall is that as folks rent out these apartments or whatever they are, or buy them, whatever it is, and the balcony is that much into the public right of way that things can be thrown and people can be hurt while they're walking in the street because it's a public right of way. And so I just don't want this to become something that it's okay because we did it once. That's all. And I'll leave it as that.
Well, you certainly have my affirmation of that point for sure. And so, yeah, I'm comfortable with this, quite frankly, because I trust BOE in making a determination and always. But if this became a sort of drumbeat, then we would expect it to be addressed on a policy level for sure. And I don't expect that drumbeat. So, all right. But I've got a motion on the table. Any objections? We'll take a roll call. Davis, you motioned. So, and we've got a second from Villegas Garcia. Good as actual roll call. Are you yes or no?
Oh, I can actually exercise my no vote, right?
Yeah. Of course.
I will exercise my no vote on this one, but knowing that I'm outnumbered, it's okay.
Commissioner Coloso?
Yay.
Okay. I will also exercise a no on this, but I lose, and the item is adopted forthwith. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tingery. So that's 3-2, Judge Compass. All right. Let's go now to okay, item 10 we've continued. No, we withdrew. Right, okay.
Withdrawn.
Now we're on to item 11. Item 11 is specifications submitted for board adoption and authorization to advertise for invitation bids. This is for traffic light synchronization program phase 2, package 2, work order E19-08869. Estimated cost of the project is $5,492,813. Bid receipt date, May 26, 2021. Is that Julie Allen? Okay, you're here for your presentation. Who's up on this?
There is no presenter on this
Oh
item.
yeah, this is, I'm sorry.
Administrative item.
It's been a long week, folks. So do I have a motion to open or to authorize the advertisement of these bids for bids? Thank you, Villegas. Villegas got it in there that time. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Colosa. Concerns or objections, Davis or Garcia?
No concerns for me.
All right. Hearing none, the item is adopted forthwith, and the advertisement of bids will go out. And with that, let's go to item 12. There we go, Ms. Allen. We have a 6th Street Viaduct Replacement Project report. Good afternoon, Julie.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. Julie Allen with the Bureau of Engineering, and I'm going to try and share screen, Dr. Campos. Hopefully I can do it, and everybody can let me know if you can see my screen.
We got you, Julie.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm happy to be here today to give you an update on the status of the 6th Street Viaduct project. So I will start with the diagram that shows completeness based on color here, and I'm happy to say that we have a lot more green showing up this quarter, which represents elements of the structure that are complete. We were able to construct 4 of the arches this last quarter, so those are colored in span 10 and span 11 green, as well as extend the bridge deck all the way to the LA River. So with those completions, the project is about 70% complete as of this quarter. So I will start with some aerial photos. These are actually drone photos that were taken early in March. So some of the work that I'll be describing has happened since these photos were taken. But that's essentially, yeah, it is a nice shot. So what you can see in the background, obviously, is the downtown skyline and City Hall. And you can see how the bridge deck is now being fully utilized with equipment and materials and vehicles. It's a very active construction site, which we like to see. And this was taken, as I said before, the first 4 arches were cast. So this is the same shot, but taken at a different angle. And what you can see here is, I'm sorry, my dogs are going, so my apologies. You can see the shape of the falsework as it, I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing on the screen here. The next 2 pairs of arches are also being prepared for with the falsework, in addition to the 3 that have the formwork already in place in the shape of the arch. This photo represents the bridge deck that is now placed all the way to the LA River. So with this deck in place and the falsework that goes over the river and the west bank of railroad tracks, you can now walk all the way from Boyle Heights into the Arts District, either on the structure or the falsework that will be supporting the structure. But I will highlight that if anyone wants to do that, you have to go through 10 plus hours of railroad safety training to be able to cross over their tracks. So,
oh goodness.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a burden, but it's a safety precaution. So we obviously follow those guidelines. So we are now moving construction onto the west side of the LA River. This is the last Y column, and the arch rib floor beam that connects the 2 Y columns. This is on the west side of the LA River. The street behind it is Santa Fe, so we're now in the Arts District. And this will be the last element that has an arch connecting to it as it spans west towards the end of the bridge. Here is another photo in the foreground. You can see that same element, which is bent 4. And I wanted to show this photo because you can see the multiple layers of falsework and formwork that are necessary to construct these wonderfully shaped concrete elements. And you can see in the background of the photo in the far right is the arches and the far distance back there as it goes into the Boyle Heights area. This is a more close-up view of the span 10 arch that was recently poured. And what you can see in this photo is reinforcement steel that goes into the inside of the concrete, as well as the steel anchors that support the cable system that connects the arch down to the deck. So those have to get embedded into the concrete before it's placed, and then the hanger cables get connected to those anchors. This is a photo of the pour of the first arch, which was at span 10. It occurred on March 25th, and the concrete was pumped from the ground, which is about 60 feet below the top of the arch. And the next photo will show some more progress work. The photo shows the span of time that it took to complete the arch pour. It actually started at 3 a.m. and lasted over 24 hours into the next morning. And the reason it takes such a long time to do the pour is on the right photo, you can see where I'm pointing out, they actually have to place the top forms as the concrete is being poured so that it allows them access to vibrate the concrete and then put the form in place and then continue the next lift. Otherwise, the concrete would just continue to pour out. So the form has to be placed in the middle of the pour. This is a photo of the concrete arch after the formwork is being removed. So you can see it has a nice smooth finish. This is taken at the top of the arch. And the forms are kept in place typically about a week or a little bit longer so that the concrete reaches full strength and the forms can be removed. And in addition to this arch at span 10, we also placed the span 11 arches. Those were on April 6th and April 10th. So this represents the schedule of the project. And I would like to mention that we had a pretty rough quarter schedule-wise. The contractor did fall behind schedule up to about 3 months of delay during the quarter. The contractor submitted a letter during this time claiming that the project was delayed due to COVID impacts, as well as extra work that they performed due to the design being incomplete. But the city disagreed with the contractor's position, and we notified the contractor that they were responsible for the delays and that they were required to recover the lost time and complete the project on schedule. So fortunately, the contractor did recently submit a schedule that recovers all of the delays and demonstrates that the project will be complete in accordance with the contract milestones and will be able to open the bridge the summer of 2022. So all of the
Julie, you said they confirmed in their response, or actually we probably should.
The contractor provided a schedule that does recover the delays, so they are showing completion on schedule at this time. So this slide represents the expenditures to date for the project. Again, the overall project budget is about $588 million, which includes $428 million in federal and state highway bridge program and Proposition 1B seismic funding. To date, we have spent about $397 million of the 587 total, and we have $190 million left to go. The next slide represents the change order status. The total change order amount to date is roughly almost 69 million. And during this last quarter, we had an increase of almost 694,000, and this represented the implementation of the global agreement to the packages other than the main package 5. There were elements in packages 2, 4, and D. So those change orders have now been implemented. I would also like to provide some good news that this week we received positive feedback from District 7. They've been reviewing our supplemental agreement change order that was associated with the claim settlement, and they gave us feedback that they have determined that the change order has merit, and they are recommending that the headquarters of Caltrans determine that the costs spent on the change order should be eligible for federal funding reimbursement. So this was a huge milestone for the project. It doesn't mean that the funding will actually be available or provided. They've indicated that the Highway Bridge Program doesn't have sufficient funds to reimburse the city either way. But if funding is ultimately identified, it would be a very positive step that those costs would be reimbursable to the city.
That's great news, because like you said, if that recommendation didn't happen, it doesn't matter if there's money in the highway program. So that's great.
Absolutely correct. Yes. So that was a huge positive for us this week. All right, so the next slide represents the Bureau of Contract Administration's review of the contractor's participation for their project labor agreement, and the 3 categories they're monitoring are apprentice utilization, female utilization, and disadvantaged utilization. These numbers haven't changed during this last quarter, but they are still showing 25% apprentice, 5% female, and 11% for disadvantaged workers, and they're far exceeding their goal of 5%. So that was it's good that they're able to maintain that. This slide is representing the board actions that are pending that we expect to bring to the board before the completion of the project. I've updated it to show the dates that the actions have occurred so far. So for example, the increased authority for railroad construction and maintenance agreements, the board on February 2nd authorized the amounts for fiscal year 2021. We will be bringing back recommendations for the future fiscal years, probably early this summer. The board report associated with the railroad flagging that occurred earlier today. And the 3 remaining items are extending the leases and temporary railroad construction easements through the end of the project. Also issuing a task order solicitation for public outreach and financial plan support due to the fact that that contract expires later this year. We'll be using an on-call contract for that scope of work. And lastly, the park element of the project, we expect to be advertising probably early next spring and awarding the contract the summer of 2022 so they can start work immediately after the viaduct is complete. The next slide. So as Commissioner Caloza mentioned earlier in the meeting, infrastructure spending has gotten a little bit more press lately. I expect that we'll see some more interest in the project as time goes on. But during this last quarter, we were featured in a local show by ABC7 called Localish. as well as our own LA Channel 35 and the ENR, California ENR is Engineering News Record. It's kind of one of the preeminent engineering and construction periodicals. So we were happy that all three articles or features were very positive about the project and gave good press to the city. One other thing I wanted to highlight is that we are also doing outreach for a planned closure of the 101 freeway that is expected to occur the weekend of April 30th through May 2nd. And this is necessary so the contractor can pour concrete into the 2 arches that span over the 101 freeway. Caltrans has requested that we have a full closure just to ensure that we don't have this activity happening over live traffic. So that concludes my presentation for this quarter, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I love that rendering. And yeah, that seems pretty smart to not pour the concrete over live traffic. That seems like a good idea. All right, colleagues. Thank you, Julie, as always. Do folks have questions? We'll start with Commissioner Villegas.
No, I don't have any questions. As always, Julie's super thorough. And I really enjoyed even seeing the pictures. So much work has been done already. Thank you just for the explanation and walking us through like even the budget and the delays and the work that from the contractors and how they're going to make it all up. I don't have any questions. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Davis. President Pro Tem Davis.
Neither do I have any inquiries on this project. Thank you, Julie, for the report.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mike. Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good, and thank you, Julie, again for your very thorough report and nice pictures. I hope you guys are like developing a book or something on how with all these great pictures and a timeline and everything that it took to build this, because it's a very elaborate project. I drove by it this weekend, by the way, and it was every time I drive by it, it like stuns me. It gives me that shock. As soon as I see it. So I drove by it this weekend, and I just thought, wow, that's just an amazing amount of work going into that. But quick question: is the concrete pouring going to happen at night again, like it did the other time?
It's expected if Caltrans approves the closure request, they will begin concrete pouring at about midnight, but it'll last probably a good 20 hours. So it'll be both nighttime and daytime during at least this particular span of arches.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I mean, I'm glad that that it's all going thus far so well or semi-well. I'm not sure of the intricacies yet, but it sounds like we're moving along this time and without any hesitations anymore. So thank you for all of that, Julie, and I'm glad you're still on this project and you're sane.
Mostly, yes.
All right, that's all for me.
Mostly, yes, she says.
Yeah, mostly, yes.
I like it, Julie. Jessica, or Commissioner Plaza.
Well, thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions. I get to work with Ms. Allen pretty frequently and hear her updates. So I'm just glad that everyone gets to see these pictures and the progress that's being made. It's, for the most part, all very positive. And, like she mentioned, we're excited to see what this bridge looks like next year. And it's always shocking to say that out loud because we've come such a long way. And like Commissioner Garcia said, it's really exciting to drive by the project. And it's just going to be a beautiful landmark for the city and really part of our cityscape. So it's going to be an eye catcher. So I can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I get, I think, what did you say, tingly on it, and also just fired up every time we see reports on this. It's just so exciting. So exciting, and hopefully we will be back in action and we'll be able to walk that thing all together, and it'll be a great celebration. But much work to be done, and Julie's at the helm. So thank you, Julie. I have no further questions, and have a great weekend. A great report as always.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. All right, Orlando Maxwell here to give us a readout for item number 13, status update on major upcoming street improvement projects. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for being patient.
Good afternoon, President Good, Commissioners, Bureau Representatives, and Dr. Campos. I'm Orlando Maxwell, Superintendent with Streets Renewal Division of Streets LA, providing information to the public to keep the public informed on the upcoming resurfacing projects and to minimize the impact on the community, as well as delays. For additional information or concerns, you can contact our coordinating section for the Streets Renewal Division at area code 213-847-3200. This weekend, April 17th through April 18th, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., we will cold mill and pave Main Street from Florence Avenue to Manchester Avenue in Council District 9, the Zapata King Neighborhood Council, to complete streets funding. On Sunday, April 18th, beginning at approximately 3 p.m., we will cold mill and pave Roscoe Boulevard from Havenhurst Avenue to Balboa Boulevard in Council District 12, our North Hills West Neighborhood Council, and Balboa Boulevard from 125 feet east to 125 feet west of the Metrolink tracks in Council District 6, Lake Balboa Neighborhood Council, and that's our pavement preservation program funding. Additionally, during the week of April 18th through April 24th, we will schedule to complete in the Valley and Metro regions 19 projects for a total of 18.61 lane miles. The press releases were distributed and notifications have been issued. Streets LA has coordinated with the council offices to assist with outreach to stakeholders. We have coordinated with the Los Angeles Department of Transportation for traffic control assistance. The information is also available on the Streets LA website using the Resurfacing Open Projects icon. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Orlando. Any questions, folks? Commissioner Coloso?
No questions for me. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Orlando Maxwell. Is your name backwards on your?
Backwards. No, oh, it's backwards. Yeah, it's Orlando.
Okay, I was like, I had to think about that for a second. Thank you for your report as always, and have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Vice President Garcia.
Same. Thank you for your report. Have a good weekend. I enjoy looking at your ties back there, by the way. You're not ready to put them back on yet, huh?
Not yet.
Not yet. I know.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis.
Oh, Superintendent Maxwell, thank you for a very thorough report, and have a good weekend.
Thank you, and you have a great weekend yourself.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And Commissioner Villegas.
I have no questions either. Thank you for your report, and indeed have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you very much.
Ditto, Mr. Maxwell. Thank you, as always, for your comprehensive report. Really appreciate it. And yeah, have a great weekend. Really appreciate it.
You too. Thank you, President Good.
Thank you so much. Dr. Campos, I believe that clears the decks, no?
That is correct, yes.
All right. As I think Cindy learned, everyone, we're not going to have a management meeting today. Oh. Am I messing something up? You're the only one heartbroken, I think. But we will next week for sure. So everyone that clears the decks, have a great weekend. This meeting is officially adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Be safe.
Good weekend. Thank
See
you.
y'all.
All right.
Take care.
All right.
You check out how I moved during the meeting? See you guys.
See you.